On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, the Avs are saying all of the right things after that debacle in Tampa, which is okay, but should there be a little bit more angst behind it? Let's talk about that and a lot more. A new episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. And make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Make sure you subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. Get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. We're going to do that in our third segment. And I know we're a little bit over a month away from the Winter Classic, but things are going on that I kind of wanted to bring it up now. Stick with us in that because I think it's a fun discussion. We'll get there in a little bit. What we're going to start off with is typically what we do day after a game, and we get to some morning leftovers, things that are still sticking with us, and there should be a lot after that 8-2 thumping that the Avs took to the hands of the Tampa Bay Lightning. So yeah, this kind of what we do is just what throughout the day after. Did anything stick with you in terms of this game? I'll go right off the top here, sir. And like I said in the opening, if you listened to any of the press conference of or after the game press conference of any of the players, Jared Bednar, because we didn't listen to that. Like we record right after the game, and then after we record and throughout the day, then I'll go back and listen to all that stuff. And typically we don't really talk about it too much because it's, you know, the answers that they give are what you expect. And they did that. And I feel like they did that for this game. And it was like, yeah, let's move on from it. Let's, we didn't play our best, obviously. Sweep it under the rug. It's not how we typically play. We got to move on. Sure, you can learn something. All of the canned responses that you normally hear in hockey press conferences. And for this one game, I was like, can we get a little bit more than that? Can we get a little bit more? Like, I'm not saying like, and you don't get it from the Avs. And I think that's why we don't talk about it a lot. You don't get this like frustration, John Tortorella after every loss. I'm going to the world is going to implode. But every once in a while, it's nice to get that from a team. And I was kind of hoping for that. And when it does happen for the Avs, when Jared Bednar goes off, which is so rare, it's big news. When Devon Taves calls out teammates, it's big news because you don't do it a lot, and I get why you don't do it a lot. And maybe for this one, it's because you did overall have a good road trip. You won 3 out of 4. That's awesome. But the way you lost that one game, I was kind of hoping for some like anger. And you didn't get it. You didn't get it from Bednar. You didn't get it from Cale Makar. You didn't get it from Parker Kelly. You didn't get it from Nathan McKinnon, who I really thought you were going to hear it from. I was a little bit surprised, man. A little bit surprised.
And we kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday when we were talking about who did this bother. You didn't see anybody like we talked about Nathan McKinnon. He didn't have a shot on goal the whole game. Like, when was he going to turn it on and get mad about the score getting away? It carried over to the press conference, and so many times, my God, we hear it all the time. Like, before the game, we got to get our pucks in deep. We got to one shift at a time. We got to worry about. We like what we're doing. Like, I get it. My God, I've heard it. All the puck luck's not going our way. We're doing all the right things, or when we mess up, it costs us. Like, it's like you're getting a toy from Toy Story, and they have like 6 phrases that you press a button and you're getting a new one every time. Like. 8-2, and we'll get to it like in our leftovers because mine, like you said, we record right after the game. You get the freshest of the hot takes right after the game, and our leftovers today are the stinkiest they could possibly be. Because, like, I'll go into it. Like, how bad was that game against the Lightning? You allowed the Tampa Bay Lightning to have a perfect power play. You went 0 for 3 on your power play. It was so bad you allowed a shorthanded goal. Like, not a single aspect of the special teams was working. Nothing forward or defensive was working. I know we harped on the goalies all episode yesterday, but this goes to top to bottom team effort. It was atrocious. And then, like you mentioned, everybody's saying, yeah, we'd like to forget this game. Yeah, we would. But how are you going to improve? Like, who's going to say, you know what? I could have stepped up. I could have done more. We could have tried.
I mean, I get, like, you do want to move on from that game. That's not a lie. But you know, and maybe I'm just maybe expecting a little bit too much for a regular season game that you just didn't play well. Like Nathan McKinnon, interviews with him after they're eliminated from the playoffs and their season is over, like, you're going to get genuine Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it's like maybe a little bit unfair for me to say, like, oh, I want that in this game, because it is just a regular season game. I'm not trying to minimize the importance of a regular season game, but that's your season ending, and this is game number 23 or whatever it was. But, you know, just, and I'm not saying go over the top. I'm not saying, you know, call people out or anything like that. But the McKinnon interview was he was angry. You could tell he was upset, but he didn't nobody used the word sucked. I wish somebody just at least said that word. Like, you know, we sucked. At least give me that. And I think they of course they know that. But but things like what you said, like, nobody really brought that up about, you know, the penalty kill was bad. Your power play was bad. Your power play, you were starting to stand around a lot again on your power play. And nothing is going to open up if we're just standing around, guys. Like, there was a second unit power play. I think it was either the Capitals game or the Panthers game, where the second unit came out and they get their 30 seconds of a power play, but it was engaged. Guys were moving around. It was like a college basketball motion offense. And then the first team goes out there and it's just like, we're just going to pass it. And the defense, it's just, their job is easy. So I don't know, like, are we at that point in the season where it's like, we're kind of going through the motions and just expecting things to open up? And I don't want it to get there. I'm not saying it's gotten there now, but like, what I saw as far as the power play goes against Tampa was just like, you're not doing anything. You're literally just standing there.
And, you know, and for the efforts that we've been seeing with the Avalanche, like, you kind of hope this isn't the Avalanche in cruise control or coast mode or just manage mode, because that effort was not there. It's not what you want. That's not I'm trying to find the right words to say without being overly harsh, but I mean, you're expected to do more because you are the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah, I think once it got out of hand, I think they just were on coast mode. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of get it, but
you see,
I know what you're saying too.
When you see that effort on the ice and it carries over to the press conference, like, you want some kind of somebody to stand up and say, okay, like, I'm going to take over here. I'm taking accountability. We will do better. Like, just a step up. Like, this can't be the expected, because, again, if you're looking back, the first period still hasn't changed. The goalie play still hasn't changed. Defense has been hot and cold all year long. Forwards have been inconsistent. Like, you don't know who's going to step up. And eventually, it can't be just us saying this is an issue and a problem. Apparently, like, eventually, the players that are getting paid and wearing the jersey, and actually it matters to, somebody has to say, you know what? This isn't what we do. I'm kind of tired of this. Maybe we need to step it up a little bit. That's what we want to hear, because that's what all of the fans and the listeners and everybody commenting, that's what we're all screaming for, is who's going to step up and who's taking accountability. And right now, everybody's just like, oh, well, it's how it happens. Puck luck.
That's at least what they're outwardly showing you. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's other discussions going on that they're not. And in that aspect, I really appreciate and respect how the Avalanche do business, because for me, it's just like, I would want to get, after a game like that, I would want to get just just heat off my chest
Yeah.
after a game like that. And they're calm. And I think that follows the approach of their head coach, where it's just like, no, like, so in some aspect, I believe them when they say things like, oh, we got to sweep it under the rug. Because I generally feel like they go about business that way. That wasn't us. There's 82 games in a season. You're not going to get many of those games, and we're collectively going to move on from it. And you don't get I got to get some, stuff off my chest, which, like I said, I would, after a game like that, I so would want to do. But I think maybe you reserve it for the close game. Maybe you reserve that for the game that you blow a third period lead, or the other team ties it up with, they pull their goalie and then they go into overtime and they steal. Like, those are the angry wins, where this is just like, we weren't in this thing from the jump. Why am I going to get super angry about a game like this? Although you could make the opposite argument for that as well. But so I get it. But I'm only bringing this up because I was a little bit surprised, like I said, because we record right after. I was expecting to go watch some of these, press conference interviews where there was a little bit of anger there, and you didn't get it. So I respect the Avalanche for doing that. I was just surprised.
I don't. I want to see more emotion out of this team, and I want this loss to hurt somebody more than Georgie's goalie stick being the only casualty from this loss. Like, you want to see somebody be upset about it, not just be like, oh, well, we'll do better. That's not what we want to see.
And the other one I wanted to bring up quickly was, you mentioned the goalie situation, and it was what it was in that game. And, right after, like you said, when we record, like that's just like the raw feelings, raw emotion. And we were kind of, is it unfair to lump Georgiev in with that game specifically, based on like how, because Annunen played just really, really poorly.
But we can't forget Georgie's start as well. That also existed this season.
Oh, you mean the start of the season?
Yeah.
Oh, I can forget. But that's where I'm going with this. Like, I do forget that, because what is happening in the here and now is he's playing better. He is playing better, and I don't want to include this game, the Tampa game, in his most recent run of games, because he's been good. So was it unfair to kind of, say like both of them put them on the same level in terms of how poorly they played? Number one, because he came in and in relief, which is always difficult to do, and because he has been playing better. So was it just, and when we did the show, we were just both like, it was terrible all around, which it was. But should you put a little bit of asterisk next to at least Georgiev's name just for that game?
No, because I'm about to slam the door on this conversation after the break.
Okay. Do that, and then hardcore death clock like. So, All right, let's get our first break in, and Kyle's going to slam some doors when we come back. Cracking knuckles. All right, let's hear from our one of our new sponsors, Built. Heard that right. So, are you a renter? No, you own, right?
I rent.
You rent. So you should be into this, sir. This is a PSA for you. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me, because earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay for your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points, and you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. How's that sound, sir?
Bring it on.
Yeah, there's no cost. There's no cost to join Built. And as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There's over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world that you can redeem your Built points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, the question is, Kyle, why not? So start earning points on rent and that you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That is joinbilt.com/lockedonnhl. And make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you, joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl, to start earning points on your rent payments today. Also brought to you by the one and only Game Time, the Game Time ticketing app. And they've got a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live event even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. In addition to Game Time Picks, you have the all-in pricing. When you toggle that feature on, it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You get your seat view, you get the panoramic views from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mr. Sullivan?
It's game time.
All right. Slam the door. We were talking about Georgiev, and is it just for this game a little bit unfair to lump him in with the struggle? I mean, there were struggles. Don't want to completely exonerate him from the struggles, but with how he's been playing recently, is this, you're hearing a lot like throw this game away. I think it's especially true for him, but you're not willing to go there. It doesn't seem.
No, because, okay, let's be real here. At the beginning of the year, when I was trying to say, hey, this Georgie thing is a problem, you said, well, yeah, here and now, but, and then you keep pointing to last season or the Winnipeg series or the Dallas series and say, well, you can't about the here and now because this. We can't exclude him in the here and now and excuse this, like things that happen. You can't have it work both ways. And like, he has equally been as bad.
Right.
You're taking this season. Like, if you want to go game by game, we can have this conversation about both goalies, which we have. Pull up every episode we've had this season following a loss, and we've had the same conversation on Juice and on Georgie. Ebbs and flows throughout the season. In this game, guess what? It doesn't matter if you're cold, because guess what? Juice stole games from Georgie coming off the bench cold.
Right.
So if Georgie can't and then throws a fit, he shouldn't get excluded. And we got to stop excluding Georgie from the conversation for hypotheticals but he could and should and would, because Juice is the same way. You can excuse these two little games. They're not ideal situations. He's been on the bench for a week and a half because you're letting Georgie get hot because, oh my God, finally he's improved and he gets out there, gets human.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways.
The only thing for me is like you can't. I think we're done saying like, oh, has fill in the player's name here, like turn the corner. You know, so that's why I'm saying like for Georgiev, like we know what we're getting. I say we know what we're getting in that we don't know what we're getting. It is a game by game. Like he could look Vezina like. He could look. You got to pull him in halfway through the first, and that's true for both goalies right now.
Yep.
So as I'm saying, like Georgiev has looked good. He has for the past 3-4 games. But am I going into this game against Vegas as like he's going to continue that? No, I hope he does. Clearly, I want the Avalanche to win the game. But am I because that good that he's doing could just run out in this next game. So you can't go back and say, well, look at what he did in the playoffs. I mean, you can and kind of say like, oh, that was a good run, but you can't go that far back and just be like, oh, he can pull from that. And you can't even go from how I'm saying up until now. You can't even go to his last game against Capitals,
Yeah.
and say like he can continue that.
And that's what I'm saying. Like this year, we couldn't criticize him because of what he did in the Winnipeg and Dallas series, and now we can't criticize him because what he did a game ago. No, I think Avalanche, the whole Avalanche mystique with our goalies, we got to strip it away. We're getting overexcited about exceptions and not the rules with these goalies. One shot, one goal, and 3 to 4 goals a game that's the rule. We're going crazy about the Edmonton game is really what we're getting crazy about with Georgie. Was the one shot, one goal. That was it. He shut it down from there, but he still lost the game. That's what we're praising him to be. And Juice, we have these beautiful paintings of these great games he had, and we're like trying to toss away these bad games. We can't keep doing that because you're going to have 2 or 3 good games, and we played like 20 games already this season.
Yeah, I know.
You can't excuse the whole season and celebrate 1 or 2 great exceptions.
No, I think this is just what you have. This is just what you have.
This
is what you have to accept. You have to
That's-
accept this is how your goalie situation is for the Avs. It's just going to be, you don't know what you're going to get. And the crazy thing is right now, like you're starting to hear other teams or whispers of other teams. Like you're starting to get to that point in the season where it's like, okay, these are what teams are in need of. And this is what could happen for moves. You're hearing it from the Rangers. They're talking about blowing that whole thing up and trading, Kreider. Like they're not going after a goalie, clearly. But you're hearing that. You're starting to hear of teams are starting to fine tune, like, and hone in on where's our, discrepancies and addressing that. And while the Rangers aren't going to have to address a goalie, Carolina does. And that's a team you got to worry about, because if you're really in the market, and God, I got to think that the Avalanche are. I cannot sit here and think that like they are 100% confident in these goalies going forward, and they're on the phones working the phones. Carolina is too, and that's my fear right now. Is whatever goalie is out there, and the goalies are what they are, and the names that you hear attached to the Avalanche, who knows if that's true or not. Carolina is too, and I just feel like they might be a little bit more active. They have to be right now. How their goalie situation is. And are they going to come in and pluck one of the guys that could be on the Avalanche radar? Could happen.
Because we have asked, what do the goalies show us what you're made of, and go out there and win a game. You got to take the best game and the worst game, throw them out, and look at what you have. And it's both goalies are not good. They're not good enough. And I'm not going to celebrate a good game at 1.2 weeks ago to warrant the bad play that we've been accepting and shining up and having to rely on everybody to play out of their mind just to overcome. And constantly the Avalanche lead the NHL in first period goals. That's not good.
Giving up.
Giving up. It's not good. It's not acceptable. And you can't keep saying this is a good performance. No, this is an exception. This is a freak performance, something you don't get on the regular.
So what happens then, like, because right now, like, this is what we have to do. Like, all we have is to go on the last game, and obviously it wasn't good. And so what happens if they go into Vegas and do like good teams do, and do put that game behind you, go out and play a Vegas team that is playing very good right now. You go out and beat them, and your goalie plays well, and now you've won, 4 out of 5. I mean, you're shaking your head already, but like that's what you want. Like, eliminate that 0-4 start, and kind of go on how like the trajectory that everyone's been on since then. They have a good record. They have like, this was a bad game. This was a bad game, and I don't want to. Again, I've said this since the season started. I don't want to take a win and say like, oh, that's we're just going to keep playing like that. And I want to take a loss and say that's, how the Avalanche are going to continue to play and play poorly. So I kind of, if you can turn it around and go back home, beat Vegas on your home ice, I think we're turning around and saying like, that's what you wanted. You played a bad game, followed it up with a good game. You can have the conversation about the goalie stuff all year long, and that's valid. But if you hang a 5 spot on them, and McKinnon gets 3 or 4 points, and all is right in the world again.
I will put it this briefly and quickly, the goalie tandem is not sustainable if you want to make any impact in the playoffs.
I get that.
It's not
I get
there.
that. No,
But,
I get that.
And second point, you can't say forget this point, because you're going to whittle away to 3 good games that you're going to point at and say this was good. Like, you can't take away a 4-game stretch here, a 2-game. This goalie had this bad game. Take all that away, but these good games were good. Can't do that because this is the ebbs and flows of a season. And if you want to make an impact in the playoffs, you can't have Nathan McKinnon expect him to score 4 goals, 4 points every night, and expect this team to win. It has to be an even distribution throughout the lineup, and the defense has to clean it up because they're playing in front of the goalie, and it doesn't matter if you have Vasilevsky back there. If this defense is not helping out, it's not going to help.
No, and I get, like, the goalie conversation is going to be, if they stick with these 2 guys, that's going to be the conversation all year long. I get that. That is fair game, and that's kind of just what they have to roll with. But, like you're saying, like, if they play a good game or good stretch of games, you can't eliminate that. You can't say, like, oh well, but the big but. I feel like you have to give them credit for beating good teams, playing good hockey. They have. That was a really good road trip.
But you can't negate and forget bad stretches either.
No, I know, but you're going right there though. You're going right to the bad part, and that's what we do as fans. Is misery loves company.
8-2 is our most recent performance going into Vegas. That's the bad.
But you beat the defending champions on their home ice. You beat a very good Washington team on their home. Like, you had a good road trip, and while the one game you lost was horrendous, it should not substitute and eliminate what you did on that road trip. If you can, turn this around and have a good game against Vegas and kind of look back on that and be like, oh, that was a blip on the radar. But we do it too much as fans. We do it way too much as fans of just honing in on everything negative and what the team is doing negative. And I don't want to do that. Like, yeah, it was a bad game. So why if we play a bad game, that's who the Avalanche are. But when you play a good game, that's not who the Avalanche are. I'm not buying into that.
Well, it's the one shot, one goal goes from a joke when you win to a problem when you lose.
No. It's totally, like, there is problems. It's not, nothing is smooth sailing in this league. There are problems. The goalie's issue is a problem. The first periods are a problem. But there's also good things going on too. Oh, by the way, you have the guy who's leading the league in scoring. You have a guy who's leading the league for defensive scoring. Mikko Rantanen is maybe he lost it in the last couple of days, but he was leading the league in goals. Like, there's good things going on in this team too. So do not forget that. I'm just trying to impress that upon everybody. Don't forget that. But we love harping on the negative, and I get that too.
We want to win a Stanley Cup. Of course.
That is the goal. And you have you have months to go where moves can be made to kind of enhance that. And maybe that happens, but we don't know. So why are we going to go right to, they'll never do it, when you have trades that can happen, a trade deadline, Ross Colton coming back. There's so many balls in the air that can still make this Avalanche a very good team. And they are a good team. And I think that they're playing that way right now. Just, man, it's crazy what one bad loss can do to the psyche of the fan base. Crazy. You want to agree with me, but you don't want to agree.
I want to. Yeah. I can't just go because I could go for another 20 minutes.
Oh, I know. It's a great conversation. I think it's a fun conversation to have. So another fun conversation is this Winter Classic coming up. Let's talk about that, sir. And why are we bringing it up right now? Well, let's get our break in, and then we'll talk about that on the other side of it. We are going to hear from FanDuel, so get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today, and you get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Of course, that's over at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so why are we talking about the Winter Classic now? I'm sure we'll talk about it as it gets closer. Maybe. I don't know. This is kind of why I'm bringing it up, because I've been hearing a lot about Connor Bedard over the past couple
Never
weeks.
heard of him.
Never heard of the guy. Yeah. And the thing that you're hearing a lot of is he's struggling, but he's on a terrible team. And Chicago is trying different things to kind of get him like engaged. They moved him over to wing, maybe just free him up a little bit more. I'm not putting so much pressure on him at the center position. But they're just a bad team. And when you're playing on a bad team, you can't expect even like your best players to be at a different level than everybody else on the team. Bedard's going to be great. That team is obviously years away from being it. So how long does that stunt his growth? I don't know. But the NHL, you knew that they were going to get him involved on a Winter Classic as early as possible. And I don't really like how the NHL is force feeding us Connor Bedard. And I just like when a player of his caliber to grow into that role naturally and not just be, force fed to everybody. But I get it. Like he is so popular with the young generation. He is incredibly popular with them. So they want to put him on a big stage. Okay. I think it's a little bit early for that. But the opponent you put them up against is equally as bad. And that's where it's like you are having the Winter Classic, and that is where you're going to get eyes on that game from the casual fan. And the casual fan is probably going to tune in and be like, oh, Connor Bedard is playing this game. I don't watch a lot of hockey, but it's an outdoor game. It's New Year's Day. I'll tune in. And what if they get a terrible game between two bad teams right now? Chicago is, I think, the worst team in the league points wise. And the Blues are what, 24, 25?
Let's get a brand new coach.
They do have a new coach, but come on. Where are the Blues? They're 22, so they moved up since yesterday. Is that what you want? Is that what you want for a game that is a quote unquote, like for the casual fan that is going to tune in? And when they tune in, if that's a bad game, they're like, man, like this is NHL hockey between these two. Why would you not market this? If you want to put Bedard in, go for it. But why would you not market it as Bedard, like past versus present, and like put him up again? And I know he's been in 37 Winter Classics, but put him up against Pittsburgh or something, or even the Capitals with Ovechkin. And I know they've been in a ton too. Why not do that? Because who's the star power on St. Louis? Make it make sense to me. I had questions about it when they answered it, or when they announced it. And now that the season is in play and these two teams are struggling, I'm going to watch it. They don't need to pander to me. Like I'll watch it no matter what, because I love the Winter Classic. But they don't need to draw me in. They do if you're trying to grow the game, and these are the teams that you put out there. I question it, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it's extremely random. There's no real power behind this matchup at all.
No.
You're not even going to really get cool Winter Classic jerseys out of this, because they kind of just copied and pasted and put out this year's Winter Classics, and they're just like, okay, whatever.
I like the St. Louis one, believe it or not. It's okay. I like it.
But St. Louis never misses on their Winter Classic outdoor jerseys. They always are really good with those. But like, this is not a market. And honestly, like, other than, I don't even know if it was a Winter Classic, the St. Louis Minnesota game.
I think when it was freezing cold outside.
I think that might have been a Stadium Series.
I think that was the Winter Classic, because that was the one that I believe was canceled because of COVID. Or no, was it? Yeah, no. That one, I think it was canceled because of COVID.
Or was that the
and
first
then they
one
rescheduled
back?
it. And then they got it back because they couldn't play it. So they postponed it to the following year. Almost positive that was a Winter Classic.
But I think that was a really competitive, fun game. But honestly, who's sitting here with your top 10 list of top 10 Winter Classics? Like, honestly, other than environment, there hasn't been memorable moments. There's not like a down to the wire, oh my God, can you believe that Winter Classic? I can't remember there ever being one that's just,
That
this
was a
is,
good one. That
yeah.
Minnesota one was a good one.
Like, other than that, like, because that was competitive for a while and it was kind of back and forth, but they're not putting on a matchup. It's just putting names out there and it's something to talk about. But like these two are a huge, I mean, they had Seattle in a stadium series or like an outdoor game. Like, what are we doing? Like, if you want these to not feel like you have played them out and they don't have any value, like start focusing on these matchups a little bit. Like Toronto would have been a really good Winter Classic, like Austin Matthews versus Bedard. That would have been a really, really good matchup.
You had a laundry list of all-stars here, and St. Louis really doesn't have a lot of them.
Hey, the Devils are a fun team right now. Like you just had them on the cover of your video game. Like just put the Hughes boys out there, put them against the Canucks outdoors. There you go.
Because that I mean, that's where sports are right now is focus on the athlete.
Yeah.
And not so much the team, which is opposite of how I watch sports. But hey, I'm older than the younger generation, and that's where they go, and that's where they gravitate towards. So that's why I understand why Bedard would be out there. I get that. But put him up against someone of equal billing or even bigger billing. And this is not an Avalanche thing. I'm not saying like the Avalanche have to be out there. We just threw out names that were not Colorado Avalanche players. It had nothing to do with that. It's just I don't feel like that's going to grab. Like look at the NBA games, what they do on Christmas.
Oh,
like those are. Let me bring them up quick because I had them up.
It's usually like Boston, New York.
Yeah, man. Like you have
Lakers, Clippers.
First of all, you have 5 games, so that all day long you have basketball. So that's fun. But you have the Spurs and the Knicks, and I don't think the Spurs are terrible. I mean, I
got Wemby.
Right there, you go.
Yep.
That is exactly a not so good team, but a huge name with the young crowd against the Knicks, who are the Knicks, and they're much improved and a very good team. You have the Timberwolves and the Mavericks.
Ooh,
there's a lot of star power on those two teams. Here's another one: 76ers, who I guess are terrible this year.
Yeah.
But they have Embiid, who I think a lot of people like, and they have other guys in that team against the Celtics. Best team in the league.
Oh, man.
Here's one that's just going to draw no matter what. Lakers and the Warriors.
Oh,
that's just, and that's the 8:00 game. That is going to be over the moon for ratings. And then it finishes up Nuggets and Suns.
Oh man,
that's how you do a day of sports, my man.
Yeah.
Like that, like come on, like, and I know you can't do 5 outdoor games, and I know you don't want to do any other games to put the focus on the outdoor game, which I am appreciative of, but have that game be must watch for the casual fan. Like I am not an NBA guy. I might tune in not all day long to some of these games because of the matchups. And I just feel like the NHL just completely fumbled this game with who the matchups are.
And the NHL sees this and they give you Raptors and Magic.
the NHL. If you mean to say that the NHL was
it's the quality. Like the NHL sees this incredible slate and they give you the equivalent of putting Raptors Magic in a stadium.
It's I just really. That's why I'm bringing it up now, because we're enough into the season where it's like, was this a bad idea for your two teams that you picked, and why did you go that route? I asked people around subtext this question: Are they going to tune in? Lisa said, "I'll probably tune in simply because it's hockey." Like that's my thing. So they don't have to go get her eyes. She's going to watch it anyway. I don't think it's something the casual fan will have much interest in. I think the only thing the NHL was thinking about was showcasing Bedard, 100%. I'm sure they're hoping the Blues will turn things around with Montgomery coming in as coach. I see them hyping Bedard versus an improved Blues team. So basically lots to talk about Bedard and Montgomery. Yawn is what she said. But
you wanted to showcase Bedard, put him up against the Habs.
Or something. Kay, I'll watch it if there isn't anything else on. But I have to admit, 2 bad teams aren't all that appealing. Pity since they are division rivals. Yeah, that's the one thing that you can say that what the NHL was going on with this was a division rivalry. But you knew Chicago was going to be a good team. And St. Louis was kind of an up in the air team and kind of right around where they are, which is not a top of the standings team. And they're throwing them out there. It's a couple more. Craig, he went to the one last year in Seattle, and he sent a bunch of pictures in. So he had some pretty good seats. It will depend on what I'm doing. I'm scheduled to work that day, so I might put it on just to have it on. I work from home. Depending on how busy I am, I might get to actually watch it. And he says he went to last year's Winter Classic. It was fun, but I had no interest in either team. I don't have any interest in the Blues or Blackhawks, and hope whichever team has the better ranking to lose. That was how it was with last year's Heritage Classic. Both of those teams stunk, and I still put it on since it was an outdoor game. Right. Yep. Exactly. You're going to put it on. Man, I think this is just, and this goes to how the NHL kind of like they make some smart decisions sometimes, and other times they don't. I feel like this is a bad one. Vargar didn't even know the Blues were in it. He said, I had no idea. Oh, no, he did know. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. He said, I have no idea why the Blues were picked. They have negative star power and substandard national following. I get the NHL anointing Bedard as the golden boy, but I hate having that shoved down my throat. Maybe they want a team the Hawks could dominate, but that's not a guarantee, bro. So it's where we are.
Play Gloria.
Oh, God. Again, I'll watch it, but I mean, maybe that'll speak like what the ratings are for this game. Maybe that'll make, if they're poor, maybe that'll wake the NHL up and be like, we got to go back to like, good matchups, solid teams, star power players on both sides.
Yeah. Not when the ratings are this game.
We'll see. All right. See, that's a rant. That's what I wanted from the Avalanche after the game on against Tampa.
I held myself back.
That's what you do. And now it's off my chest. We talked about it on the show, and now I can move on until it gets closer, and I'll rant about it again, or after the game is over and it's terrible, and here we go again. So, all right, it's going to wrap it up for today. Excuse me. Maybe doing an episode tomorrow after this game. We'll see how it goes. We don't know. It is running into Thanksgiving, so maybe we'll be back tomorrow. Do not know. Wait, you up for it? If we can get it, we'll see. We'll see.
My family's in Alabama, so we're good.
All right. So he is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Hey, you just made it through another 24 hours. Or Sidney Crosby is that close? Much closer to being in an Avalanche sweater.
I don't know what he's thankful for.
Not playing in this year's Winter Classic.